Conversations with an Entrepreneur. My name's Sarah, and this is a new podcast for Salehoo. We're going to be talking to entrepreneurs all around the world, getting a little bit of insight into their world and some insights that they might have for you. So on the show today, I have Chelsea Gorillo, a dropshipper from Los Angeles, who built 4 six-figure dropshipping stores and has created over 7 figures in e-commerce revenue. Chelsea, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. Such an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. So how about you tell us a little bit about how you got into dropshipping and what interested you about this space?
Oh my gosh. So initially, this is not something I ever thought I would be doing, only because I wasn't exposed to it. I didn't know anyone really in this industry at all. When I found out about drop shipping and e-commerce, I was actually a celebrity makeup artist. So my whole world revolved around my clients, trying to get the next best gig, chasing my clients from city to city gig. It was just a totally different lifestyle. And it got to the point where, I loved what I did, but I realized that unless I was physically present every day, I wasn't getting paid. And I'm like, how can I scale this if I'm only getting older? Like, how? There's only one of me and I'm not coming home with all that much money at the end of the day. So how can I, what is the purpose of this? And so it really forced me to start reconsidering and thinking, about other options that may be out there. And then at the time, my boyfriend had just come home from prison, actually, and he wasn't able to get a job anywhere. And that's what really catapulted everything for us, because we kind of felt like our backs were up against the wall. We had to figure out what we could do to make our own rules, make our own money without someone else kind of deciding if they wanted to give them a job or not, So we were in LA living off of one income initially, and we realized okay, we got to do something. We started researching, kept hearing e-commerce, this $1 billion industry. We're like, what is that? And essentially everything is that. So once we kind of connected the dots and realized this is not a fad, this is not anything new, e-commerce is a thing, it is the biggest thing. We just kept researching. And then when I found out about drop shipping, I just felt like I unveiled such a secret in this space. I felt like it was the biggest shortcut, the biggest hack. And I just wanted a piece of it so bad. I just jumped right in, and that's how we got started.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point there that a lot of people think it's a fad or think it's some kind of unachievable thing, whereas the reality is everything is becoming e-commerce, and drop shipping is really just a logistics model to get your product from point A to point B. And so I think once people make that jump and realize that, lots of other companies are doing this, then that's when you make that breakthrough. So going through all those trials and tribulations, learning drop shipping, what do you think one of your biggest learning curves were, or what did you find challenging?
Definitely initially was the mindset. Mindset plays such a huge role. And I think coming from the typical backgrounds that majority of us probably come from, 9 to 5 or just something different. I think our mindsets are just formed very differently. When you become an entrepreneur, or when you set your hearts on becoming an entrepreneur, there has to be a mental shift that takes place. You no longer have anybody waking you up, telling you what to do. You don't have anywhere that you need to be at a specific time, or there's a consequence. There's just so many different factors that come into play. And it really just boils down to how bad do you want it? Because if there's ever a point in time where you no longer want it, you won't show up for yourself. And, that's a big thing for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people are more naturally able to be loyal and really hold down a 9 to 5. Even if they hate it, they're just so conditioned to get in that car, drive to work, sit there, get through the day, collect that paycheck. When it comes to doing things for our own selves, sometimes like with working out or with starting a business, that consistency, when you don't have, that person over you, it's just a different force that you need to be driven by. So for me, focusing on my why and my reason is truly, what saw me through to the finish line. Or, there's never going to be a finish line, but that just kept me going and keeps me going to this day. Mindset is such a powerful thing. But I wouldn't say I really struggled with that, because I understood that shift needed to happen very relatively soon in this game for me. And as I embraced it. The challenge for me was not having a whole lot of capital, and the more people you get advice from, everybody has their own way of kind of doing things in this space. And so me not being able to decipher between like what's really needed with this small budget that I have. Like, how do I allocate these funds that I have right now? Do I go and invest in inventory? Do I go and invest in a mentor? Do I go invest in Facebook ads to help my business grow? Where do I put my next little chunk of change? And for me, that was probably the hardest part of it all. Definitely. As for most people, who are starting a business and don't have much money. But once you get over that hump of feeling like you're throwing money away or you're wasting money, it's all an investment. And that mindset part right there is the one that was the hardest for me to overcome. But once I did, it was good.
For sure. That's another really good point. Like, people, when they start dropshipping or start e-commerce, they often think like, oh, like I'm putting, all this money, it seems like it's going into this void, but really not at all. Right. You have to use money to make money with any kind of business, whether it's online, brick and mortar, home business. You're always going to have to invest something. So always. That's a really, really good lesson. So let me ask you, like, if you had $500, let's say you were just getting started again and you were starting over and you had $500 and you were a new entrepreneur, how would you spend $500? What would you suggest?
Oh my God. And what's crazy is that I know you sent me this question to prep me, and I needed to focus on this and come back to this because, oh my God, $500. This is a very intense question. It like gives me anxiety thinking about it because I remember what it was like to be at that point. Right. I would honestly say I would, soak up and absorb as much free information as possible. Only because 500 may or may not be able to afford you a mentor or something like that. But honestly, probably what I would do is I would use like 200 of it to invest in a coaching call. That's what I would do. Bam, right off the dome. Okay, this is exactly what I would do. I would use half of it to invest in someone who has proven results in the marketing industry. And I would get, my pen and paper ready and literally probably record the conversation so I could play it back 10,000 times. But I would make that $200 call, that $250 call flip into $1 million, because when you don't have much money, like you have to really make the most of every bit of information, free or paid, that you get. 100%. And I feel like, oh my gosh, like I remember I was telling one of my students this very recently, like, I was so afraid to invest in my mentor, but I just knew that by the time I got off the phone, like I was not going to skip I wrote down and recorded every single thing that came out of his mouth. And I just reread it 1,000,000 times. And I made sure I had my questions completely ready, organized. Like I was not going to let 1 second of that conversation be in vain or go to waste, because I needed every ounce of info that he could give me. And so I would just recommend using some of it to pay someone for a coaching call, or some type of one-on-one. And then the remainder I would use to pour into Facebook ads. That's just what you do. Or you can hire an influencer. That's a great way to go as well. But I personally prefer Facebook and Instagram ads personally. But the point is to invest in your marketing after getting that that information, that strategy, that proven strategy. That's what I would do.
Yeah, in this game, like knowledge is power, and the more free knowledge you can get, there's so much free knowledge out there. So that is
so
a great piece of information. That is
Thanks.
all the time we have, but Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Salehoo listeners, we'll be back with more conversations with an entrepreneur every single week. And if you like Chelsea, her Instagram is Hunigold. And yeah, thank you again for joining us and having this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.